So today we are diving into a high stack scenario every operator eventually faces a severe low stock event. Think of this as your survival guide for the furnace. We are not just talking about filling a hole, we are talking about mastering the complex physics of thermal compensation to save the furnace from a catastrophic stall. So if you look at a current state dashboard on this slide, you will see we are in trouble. Our stock line is at negative 4.5 meters and our thermal efficiency has plumbed to 40%. So this slide sets the stage for why precision, not just speed, is what gets us back to that recovery target of a stable 2.2 meter level. So the crisis is all about the code uh, read at 2.35 meter. We need to be clear on where the danger zone starts. Our standard stockline dump level is strictly around 2.35 meter. Once we drop below that, the furnace begins starving. Look at the rates here. We are descending at nearly half a meter every minute. At this speed, every second you spend deciding is a second the furnace loses its thermal momentum. So this is where the clock starts ticking on your decision. So coming to our next slide, which is about a phase one, which is on engaging the braking system. So when the burden plummet, your first instinct is your brakes, the blast volume. So we don't just cut the wind at random. We need to step down the total blast volume in strict increment of 20,000 meter cube hourly until that descent actually stops. So once you have held the line and confirmed your charging capacity is back, you do not just slam the throttle back up. We use a controlled re-entry, increasing the wind by only 5,000 meter cube per hour every 30 minutes. This slow approach prevents us from shocking the system before it's ready. So, coming to the fatal instinct, uh, which is the rapid catch up trap. So, now here is the mistake that kills furnaces. When charging returns, there is a huge psychological pressure to dump material as fast as possible to fill the gap or fill the descended empty space. So, don't do it. So, look at the undershoot line in red. So if you hit the this too fast, the top gas temperature crashes. In this case, it's dropping at 50 degrees centigrade per minute. So this destroys the furnace ability to dry the material, triggering a fatal chain reaction that we will look at on the next slide. So the coming to the invisible cascade. So this diagram shows exactly why the temperature crash is so deadly. It starts with the moisture condensation that cook the dust catcher. So because the top zone is too cold to dry, the raw material then enter cohesive zone, wet and under reduced. The result is viscous slag, thick iron-rich liquid that doesn't flow. This chokes the furnace drives completely. So we'll see your differential pressure spike to a critical 5.5 bar and exactly 55 dumps after that initial drop, the furnace will simply stagnate. So we are trying to avoid that stagnation point at all cost. So the golden rule. So what is the golden rule about controlled slow catch up. So, to avoid that disaster, we follow the golden rule, that is, recover the stock line systematically over a full 2 hours. So, your primary goal is not the level, is the temperature. You must ensure the top gas temperature never falls below where it was before the incidents. So, by keeping the temperature stable, you ensure normal drying occurs and there is a zero thermal shock to the cohesive zone. So, if you do this right, there are no adverse effect, that is 55 dump later. So, this brings us to how we calculate the fuel needed for this recovery. Now, coming to our diagnostic matrix, categorically the threat, not every drop is a disaster. So we categorize them into three levels. A minor loss of around 2 meter is just an anomaly. You just do a slow catch up with zero extra coke. However, if you have a repeated loss, meaning a second 2 meter drop within 3 hours, so that's an escalation. You will need 10 tons of extra coke as a precaution. Anything over 3 meter is a severe loss, and that's when we pull out the full thermal compensation protocol we are about to see. So, coming to the cook compensation matrix. So, the math of the survival uh, is as it is shown. So, this is the math of survival for the furnace. The technical rule is simple. The first 2 meters are free, but every meter below that demands exactly 10 tons of extra coke as thermal insurance. So notice the scaling. A 3 meter drop is 10 tons, a 5 meter drop is 30 tons, and a massive 8 meter drop requires 60 tons. So these numbers are non-negotiable because they represent the exact energy debit from the debit the furnace has incurred. So coming to the next slide, which is about the crucible and which is about also surviving a 6 meter plunge. So let's look at the real world scenario. It's a 2 a.m. peak production and a charging failure leaves the stock line 6 meter below the standard. So the furnace is effectively a power um, hmm, source. So this is the moment where your next move determine if the furnace survive the ride. So uh, this is about the divergent trajectory, instinct versus precision. So you have two paths here. Path A is the panic response. So you dump 100 tons of panic coke and slam the burden in at max speed. What is the result? The top gas crashes to the 75 degrees centigrade dew point. The dust catcher kicks up and you end up with a total freeze up. So path B. So let us see the path B, which is about this mastering playbook. So you consult the matrix, calculate the exact debit, and execute control braking as the graph shows that this keeps the furnace in the optimal zone rather than panic zone. So executing the master protocol. So let's walk through the master protocol for that 6 meter drop. First, we break by stepping down the wind in those 20,000 meter cube per hour increment to stop the descent. Next, we compensate the matrix for 6 meter, dictate exactly 40 tons of extra coke, and finally we recover with that meticulous 2 hour slow feed, keeping a constant eye on top gas and ensure it stay above 100 degrees centigrade. So let us talk about then the what is the perfect catch. So when you follow the protocol, this is what success looks like. Your top gas drying capacity is perfectly maintained at 120.5 degrees centigrade. And that's 40 ton of coke we added hits the cohesive zone at the exact moment. the thermal debit arrives. So we are back at 99.9% stability. Our hot metal is healthy, 1510 degrees centigrade, and production smoothly returned to our 6300 tons per day set point. So this is the precision engineering in action. So, mm, coming to the mm, lifeblood of recovery, which is more top gas temperature oriented. So, I cannot overstate this. Top gas temperature is your lifeblood. Our prime directive is to never let it drop below 95 degrees centigrade during recovery. If it hits 80 degrees centigrade, you have reached the dew point where moisture starts condensing, the danger zone. So if the temperature start slipping, uh, mm, you have to use our emergency lever. So you can decrease oxygen with at 10 to 20 degrees centigrade, increase coal or decrease blast temperature, but never ever reduce blast volume just to fix top gas temperature. That actually cools the gas further in the long run. So coming to the synthesis part, uh, um, so here is your one page cheat sheet for when things goes wrong. Detect the drop, step down the bin, and then only once charging is back, calculate your depth, whether it's a 2 hour slow charge for a minor drop or full coke matrix for a severe one. The global rule remains the same. Keep that top gas above 95 degree centigrade. So this flowchart is your roadmap to keeping the furnace and drive stable even in a crisis. So coming to the master the burden, to wrap up, uh, mastering the burden is about protecting the heat. A world class recovery is not about how fast you can react, it's about how precisely you can calculate. Use the tool, trust the matrix, and keep the furnace hot.